Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. Well, the wildfire situation is dynamic for people in BC's northeast. That's what officials are saying. Nearly 5,000 people from Fort Nelson and the Fort Nelson First Nation are under evacuation order. The Parker Lake fire is now just 2.5 kilometers away from town. If you're an evacuee, we'll bring you what you need to know. We'll have the latest word from officials. And we're asking, how is this fire affecting you? If you have been through an evacuation, what's your advice for people from Fort Nelson? I'm Michelle Elliott. Welcome to BC Today.
I don't know, it's worrying. Hopefully the town doesn't burn, Hopefully it's still there. It's always be home. I never thought it'd be us, until now.
That was Chance Ko-Che. He's a resident of Fort Nelson. And 4,700 people in that community are under an evacuation order. And that's because of a wildfire close by. A reception center for evacuees is open in Fort St. John. That is at 9805 96th Avenue. And if you're able to travel further, more centers are open in Dawson Creek, Chetwynd, and Prince George. Here are some numbers for you to know. If you need help with evacuation transport, call 250-775-0933. That's 250-775-0933. In an emergency, call 911. The province says it's making mental health supports available to evacuees as well. You can call the BC Mental Health Line at 310-6789. 310-6789. No area code is needed. And if your device has low battery or a poor data connection, CBC News has a low bandwidth version of our website available. That's cbc.ca/lite, LITE. Again, it's cbc.ca/lite. Let's get the latest now. Emergency Management Minister Bowen Ma gave this update a short time ago.
As of 7 a.m. this morning, approximately 4,700 people were placed under an evacuation order due to the Parker Lake wildfire in the Northern Rockies Regional Municipality. This includes the town of Fort Nelson and the Fort Nelson First Nation. I have also been informed that additional alerts affecting approximately an additional 80 properties related to the holdover and Parker Lake wildfires have just been upgraded to evacuation orders as well.
And Minister Bowen Ma outlined the supports that are available to evacuees.
To those who have evacuated, I know that this is an extremely difficult time, and I want you to know that supports are available if you need them, including accommodation, food, and incidentals. Reception centers are open in Fort St. John, Dawson Creek, Chetwynd, and Prince George. At this time, we are not aware of any people who have been evacuated who do not have the accommodation that they need. However, rooms remain available for those who do need it. Over the weekend, the province has established additional accommodation site with 200 rooms at Sunset Prairie. Provincial staff are also on the ground helping to register people for emergency supports as quickly as possible. While reception centers are working through queues to answer any questions evacuees might have, Service BC will be opening a call center today to also help answer questions from evacuees. They will also be proactively reaching out to evacuees to check in and offer any additional supports. In light of the elevated risk in and near Fort Nelson, I am asking those who have not yet evacuated to please do so. We are here to provide any emergency supports you may need, including accommodation, food, and incidentals. Mental health supports are also being provided. Disaster psychosocial services have been deployed to Fort St. John through Health Emergency Management BC.
And again, as she mentioned, there are reception centers in Fort St. John, as well as Chetwynd, Dawson Creek, and Prince George. An additional site has just been added with 200 rooms at Sunset Prairie. That's between Fort St. John and Dawson Creek. Service BC is also opening a call center to answer evacuee questions. Again, you can go to cbc.ca/BC, or if you have low battery or a poor connection for data, you can use cbc.ca/lite, LITE. Now, Cliff Chapman is the director of the provincial operations for BC Wildfire Service. Here he is explaining how the situation has evolved since last night.
Last night we were expecting to see those westerly winds kind of pick up later into the evening and last throughout the night, which is why we released a video late yesterday afternoon, sort of indicating that was going to happen. Fortunately, we didn't see those winds materialize last night, but we do expect them to return later this morning, sort of early into the afternoon. Now, unlike Friday with the cold front, we're not expecting to see 70-kilometer winds, but we are expecting sort of 25 to 30 sustained winds coming from the west, which obviously with the location of the Parker Lake wildfire is a big concern for our operational staff on the ground, who remain in place, doing structure protection, continuing to build guards, and continuing to use air support to try to protect the community of Fort Nelson. But those winds are going to be here for the next 48 hours. And it's really just about when they show up and how long they're going to last. But we are anticipating them later this morning and then to continue for the next, 1 to 2 days.
As he mentioned there, the next 48 hours are critical. Cliff Chapman, Director of Provincial Operations for the BC Wildfire Service. Now, he says there are challenges in fighting fires in an area like Fort Nelson.
It's a long distance between Fort Nelson and other communities, including where our fire center is located, like our primary fire center, which is in Prince George. Saying that, we do have crews that are positioned and permanently in Fort Nelson, as well as Fort St. John and other communities up in the Northeast. But the logistical challenges are real, and it is part of why we put an incident management team out ahead of this, really the Parker Lake wildfire. We started to get them moving last Tuesday, knowing that this cold front was coming, knowing there was potential for fire. So we try to account for the distance by utilizing preparedness planning, but also by utilizing different means of travel. So we have the ability to fly people if it makes sense to do so, to try to limit the drive distance of our crews to get them there immediately. And again, it's also part of us expanding our partnerships, using municipal fire departments that are local to support structure protection and structure defense, because they can get their apparatus there obviously much faster than we can from a location like Kamloops or the Lower Mainland.
Cliff Chapman, Director of Provincial Operations for the BC Wildfire Service. And we've heard from the officials as they spoke this morning at 10 a.m. and gave their latest update. We'd like to hear from you now as well. You can give us a call and let us know, how is this wildfire impacting you? If you've been through wildfire evacuation before, what is your advice? You can call us 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. You can hit pound 690 on your cell phone. You can also email bctoday@cbc.ca. Now, CBC reporter Yvette Brand was in the Fort Nelson area throughout the weekend, speaking with local officials and residents leaving. She's now in Fort St. John, where evacuees have been told to go. Hi, Yvette.
Hi, Michelle.
You have been very busy speaking to people affected by this over the weekend. Can you describe what it was like?
Well, it's really overwhelming to watch what the people from Fort Nelson are going through. I mean, think about this, 3,000 people moved within a 24-hour period with no issue. They all just single file drove the 6 hours down to Fort St. John. That's how long it took, because you can imagine bumper to bumper campers, people packing up their 4x4s with everything that they can. Then they all tried to find places to stay. So there's a lot of emotions and there's a lot of real fear and worry about what's happening up there right now. You can see behind me that the wind is picking up here in Fort St. John.
Yes.
It's supposed to pick up in Fort Nelson later this afternoon.
I can see the grass behind you starting to blow in the wind, which of course is a big concern right now. For the mayor of Fort Nelson, what did he tell you? What is he watching for the most?
Well, you know, the mayor, when we met with him at the checkpoint, which is where they stop you on the highway before you can get into Fort Nelson, you know, he drove out in his massive pickup and he just looked somber. And this was yesterday. He talked about this being particularly difficult the next 24 hours, and about how this could be the last stand for Fort Nelson if those winds turn. He's very concerned about the dryness of the ground, about the volatility of that fire, and about just the size of it. They've also got fires coming from 2 other directions too, so the whole area is just blanketed in smoke. It's thick like a curtain, and he's very concerned about the people that have stayed there. He said there were about 37 households where people had stayed behind. He estimated 100, maybe 150 people that are trying to protect those properties and staying on them, and they're urging them to get out. They still have fire officials behind, building berms, and they sort of dig out the ground so the fire can't, drop embers and set things on fire. They're keeping things soaked, but they're going to have to leave at some point if it gets too dangerous, if those winds turn. So there's a real sort of tension here right now, Michelle.
I'm just going to put out the phone numbers once again, asking you if you are in the northeastern part of the province, if you're in Prince George and perhaps dealing or working with or seeing evacuees starting to arrive, or at Dawson Creek, at Chetwynd, in Fort St. John, you can give us a call and let us know what it is you're seeing. And if you have been through a wildfire evacuation yourself in our province, it's a familiar experience, unfortunately, now for British Columbians. You can let us know what is your message to people from Fort St. John. What is the advice you would like to share? Our numbers are 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. You can hit pound 690 on your cell phone. The CBC's Yvette Brend is with me, and you spoke a little bit about that travel time, right, from Fort Nelson to Fort St. John, taking hours and hours, bumper to bumper. Can you tell me what evacuees have told you about that trip and what arrival has been like?
Well, the first day as they arrived, there was long lineups. And, you're talking like moms with toddlers and babies and all of your stuff and all of your pets. So it was harrowing and nerve-wracking. And they described how, they didn't know what was happening, if they'd get to go back, so they didn't know what to take. They didn't know how long they'd be there. And then they'd arrive at the evacuation center, and then there's a long line up there. By the time we got in on Saturday, they'd already run out of beds for people in Fort St. John, so people were being moved on, drive another 440 kilometers to Prince George. Now they've opened up Chetwynd and Dawson Creek in different places. They do have enough beds for people now, but there was that sort of stress at first, and people were sleeping in their vehicles. It's incredibly difficult to watch people go through this. And even in the hotels, right, when you're there at night, you can hear the dogs barking and the cats meowing, because everybody's brought their pet, everybody's brought everybody they love, and they're just hoping they can go home. And sort of their only window back to home is whenever that mayor comes out and speaks, or if some of the people that are there post on social media videos, snippets, just glimpses of Fort Nelson and what's happening there now.
A real challenge. And, we heard from Cliff Chapman from the BC Wildfire Service saying all their resources right now are going toward protecting the town and preventing the fire from arriving there. It's all about defense right now. And just to hear you say, the mayor saying to you, this could be the last stand for Fort Nelson is just, it's very stark to listen to that. What are you going to be watching for as you're there the rest of this day?
Well, clearly the wind, as you can see, and we are going to be visiting, the coordination center and looking at what they're trying to do to help from here. And we're going to be keeping in touch with people. We know that some people have lost their homes there already. We've been keeping in touch with the young people that we met the first day. There's teenagers here that graduated this year that are worried that their hometown won't be there, the town they grew up in. So we're just trying to keep tabs on everybody. I met a woman at the hotel today who was clutching this little dog and talking about how much it means to her to get any information out of Fort Nelson at this point. And I've worked a long time in media, and I've had 2 people come up and hug me and thank me for being there. This is a very emotional place to be right now, Michelle.
And we know that the Emergency Management Minister, Bowen Ma, also said, she just put up the number out there that they are making, psychosocial supports available. She put out the number for the BC Mental Health Line, 310-6789, because you're right, this is a very emotional process to go through, and certainly we'll watch to see what supports people need, what they are receiving, and what more could be done to help this evacuation be as smooth as possible for them. Yvette Brand, thank you so much.
Thank you, Michelle.
That's Yvette Brand in Fort St. John. She was in the Fort Nelson area throughout the weekend, as you heard, at a checkpoint there for people who were traveling out. She spoke to the mayor of Fort Nelson about what he is watching for. And we are also here on our open line asking you what impact this wildfire is having on you. If you are in the northeastern part of our province, let us know what you're observing, what your thoughts are on this. And if you have been through an evacuation yourself over these last few years in BC, I'd love to hear what advice you have. What was your experience and what could have been done better? What makes things smooth? Run smoothly. You heard from Yvette Brand there say 3,000 people were moved out of Fort Nelson, and things seem to move slowly but surely. So what are the things that help an evacuation and evacuees as well? What are the supports that they need? Love to hear from you. 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. And you can hit pound 690 on your cell phone. Again, 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. It's 12:22 now in the Pacific time zone. You heard CBC's Yvette Brand mention Rob Fraser, the mayor of the Northern Rockies Regional Municipality, in which Fort Nelson is, and how hearing from him is a point of connection for the community of Fort Nelson. Let's hear some more from him now. He told the CBC what's being done to fight this fire.
We've got the air assets of the BC the BC Forest Service are on site. They're bombing it. They're dropping water with helicopters. We've got local crews with cats and equipment building fire breaks. The ground personnel are out there. Our firefighters from all across northern British Columbia, as well as the wildfire service firefighters are out there on the ground, mopping up where we can and really trying to keep the fire away from those high fuel areas. So it's all hands on deck, but we're 400 kilometers from the closest town, and if the wind comes up, this will be over before anybody can get here. So we're doing what we can with everything that we've got in the community. We've got some great contractors here. They've got some excellent equipment. They're out there doing their best. And you never have enough when you've got a fire, impinging on your community this closely.
Rob Fraser is the mayor of the Northern Rockies Regional Municipality, and that is where Fort Nelson is located. 4,700 people evacuated from Fort Nelson and Fort Nelson First Nation, and this is in light of the Parker Lake wildfire. We're asking you, how is this fire affecting you? And if you have been through an evacuation order, if you have been through wildfire evacuation, what is your message? What is your advice? 1-800-825-5950 is our number here on the open line. You can also dial up 604-669-3733. And some more information for you now, just to reiterate, because this is information that is very useful for people who are traveling away from the Fort Nelson region and the Northern Rockies Municipality Regional District. It's, again, the evacuation center is in Fort St. John at 9805 96th Avenue. If you are able to travel further, more centers are open in Dawson Creek, Chetwynd, and Prince George. And again, if you need help with transport, you can call 250-775-0933. 250-775-0933. Another site, reception center, has been opened as well, and this is at Sunset Prairie, which is between Fort St. John and Dawson Creek. And as well, there is a Service BC call center opening today to take evacuee questions and to check in. Again, you can go to cbc.ca/BC for more information, and you can use cbc.ca/lite, LITE, if your data is running low, if your battery is running low as well. We have a phone call now from Reg, who is in Chetwynd. Hi, Reg. Thanks so much for calling.
Good afternoon, Michelle. How you doing?
I am
All right.
fine. And how are you? What are you seeing around you there?
Well, it's sunny skies today in Chetwynd, but we do hear about this fire near Hudson's Hope, not too far from
Yeah.
Moberly, where I live.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just sort of twigged by when you're putting out the question, or what more can you do to prepare? Well, don't wait till the last day before you get a notification. 25 kilometers, fires can travel pretty fast.
Absolutely.
So I've just taken on myself to I've got an RV, make sure the trucks, everything's working, batteries are charged, for travel, fuel and all that, because that's the biggest thing with people, just having enough advance notice. Obviously, but I think the emergency folks got it covered pretty good up that I'm hearing.
Yeah. Have you seen, you're in Chetwynd, have you heard word of any evacuees from up in Fort Nelson arriving?
Yeah, I've heard some folks have come in. There's no sort of rush, it's pretty slow progression. I think people
Sure.
making their way this far. I
Yeah.
think, the centers to the north are going to be the primary, stop. I sure hope the best for them. That's pretty scary.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right about being prepared, not waiting for the final word. What's in the bag? Perhaps if people are thinking, I'm going to pack my go bag. What do you have, Reg?
Well, I mean, definitely, plan to be away for a couple of weeks. Obviously with your animals, got to make arrangements for your, if you've got livestock. I mean, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
People have to do it up in Prince George for folks that came up from Williams Lake, and just having the networks out there, being prepared, and certainly all the personal gear and documents. I just decided I'm not going to be on the road myself for a couple of weeks, so I don't want to get any surprises while I'm away too much. We got to kind of roll with everything, but I really do think that there's a lot to be gained from. Some of the other preparation, I hear they got lots of heavy equipment going.
Yes.
For the perimeter up around Fort Nelson. I would really like to know, I would first of all like to hear from the regional district, what the story is with that. Moberly's just downwind from this location.
Okay.
And it's far enough, but boy, if there's guards that can break up any of that before it starts hitting the forestry. Good.
Yeah.
Then that's going to be that to me it has a lot of potential because there's so many people with the heavy equipment that could be creating those fire guards.
Creating, again, prevention, looking at prevention. Reg, all points very well taken. You stay safe as you travel, okay? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye. That's Reg in Chetwynd. Let's head to further west to 100 Mile House now in the Caribou, and Leah's on the line. Hi, Leah.
Hi there.
Hi, thanks so much for calling. You have some advice for people.
Yeah, I was evacuated in the 100 Mile fires in 2017, and it's really surprising what you aren't able to take because it did come on very suddenly. But one of the things I recommend is taking pictures of your house before you leave it, just of what you did leave behind for insurance purposes. And one of the things I discovered while away and evacuated was, some of the insurance policies will release funds to you because of your evacuation, which is a great help. Things that I wasn't able to take with me with the dogs and the cats were pens and crates and, the resources from the people that have donated was incredible. So.
And Leah, how are you doing in 100 Mile right now then? I think we've lost our connection with Leah, unfortunately, but really, really good advice there. Take a photo of your home as you're leaving, and also know about the insurance policy that you have and whether they will release funds ahead of time if you are having to evacuate your home. Leah, thank you so much for your call, and I see that it is raining at 100 Miles, so that is good to hear for your region there. It's 12:30 now. And this is BC Today here on CBC. We are spending the hour speaking about the Parker Lake wildfire that has grown overnight to Sunday night. And because of that, and because of its proximity to Fort Nelson, 4,700 people in that community, as well as Fort Nelson First Nation, have been evacuated from the region. They are being told to head to Fort St. John, as well as Dawson Creek, Chetwynd, and Prince George. Another location now at Sunset Prairie. Again, for more information, you can go to cbc.ca/BC to get the latest updates. You can also use cbc.ca/lite, LITE. Coming up in our next half hour, we're going to hear from a local MLA, Dan Davies, and as well as the mayor of Dawson Creek will join us as well about what they're seeing when it comes to evacuees. It's one of the host cities welcoming people there. And again, we are asking you to call us and let us know, how is this fire affecting you? If you are in a nearby community, how concerned are you? Just like we heard from our caller Reg at Chetwynd, saying Moberly Lake is not too far away. And we'd like to know, how is it affecting you? And if you have been through this process of evacuating your community, what is your advice? Again, our number is 1-800-825-5950. Time now for a CBC News update. And here's Robert Zimmerman.
Good afternoon. Police say a person has been found dead after a fire in a Surrey home last night. RCMP say the victim was found in the secondary suite of the house along 128th Street. Investigators say they have not confirmed the person's identity. As we've been hearing on the show, nearly 5,000 people are still out of their homes as a wildfire continues to threaten Fort Nelson. Crews are reporting extreme fire behavior. Officials say calmer conditions prevented the blaze from advancing closer to the community overnight, but winds are forecast to pick up throughout the day. And the Squamish-Lillooet Regional District has issued an evacuation alert for properties on the south side of Carpenter Lake near Gold Bridge. The district says a fire is burning out of control in the area about 100 kilometers west of Lillooet. The BC Wildfire Service website says human activity is the suspected cause of the fire, which spans about 50 hectares. And now taking a look at the forecast on the north coast, showers tapering off this afternoon, then a bit of sunshine with a high of 11, highs to 17 with increasing cloudiness in the Peace. In the central interior, including Prince George, mainly cloudy with a high of 15 degrees, highs around 23 with some sunshine and a chance of showers in the Kootenays. In the southern interior, including Kelowna, mainly cloudy with a high of 21. And for Metro Vancouver, Greater Victoria, and the Fraser Valley, mix of sun and cloud this afternoon with highs around 19. That's your CBC News update from Vancouver.
Rob, thank you very much. And again, we'll keep an eye on that evacuation alert issued for the Squamish-Lillooet Regional District. Emergency Info BC is where you want to go for that. And some more important details here for you, and important information, again, for people who are residents of Fort Nelson or Fort Nelson First Nation. 4,700 people have been evacuated from the area due to the Parker Lake wildfire. And you can go to Fort St. John. A reception center for evacuees is open there, 9805 96th Avenue. Now you can call the number 250-775-0933. That's if you need help with evacuation transport. Again, 250-775-0933. In an emergency, you're asked to call 911, of course. And for mental health supports, dial 310-6789. 310-6789. And you can also go to our website, of course, for information, cbc.ca/BC, or you can use cbc.ca/lite, cbc.ca/lite. That's LITE if your phone is running low on battery or you don't have a good Wi-Fi connection. This is BC Today. As you have been hearing, BC is experiencing its first major wildfire evacuation this season. 4,700 people in the town of Fort Nelson and the Fort Nelson First Nation are under evacuation order. The Parker Lake wildfire has grown to nearly 53 square kilometers. This is as of last night. And officials held an update this morning. Emergency Management and Climate Readiness Minister Bowen Ma said the fire is now 2.5 kilometers away from Fort Nelson, threatening to hit the town, and this is due to winds. Now, the BC Wildfire Service says all of its resources are currently being put towards protecting those communities. Cliff Chapman is with BC Wildfire.
We have 69 BC Wildfire Service staff on site of this fire, including the incident management team, which we spoke of earlier. There are additional fire crews en route, as well as some single resources. We have 19 helicopters assigned. Fixed-wing air tankers are available as needed in the northeast of the province, but specifically for structure protection. So we have 4 structure protection specialists, 2 structure protection task force leaders, 64 structure protection personnel, which is made up predominantly of municipal fire departments of the northeast of the province. And again, I want to thank them for their continued support. Those apparatus and those individuals are deploying sprinklers, doing structure protection, defending the structures in Fort Nelson from the potential of fire entering the community. That is the priority of our team. It is the priority of the team that is operating on this fire right now. That also includes the use of heavy equipment on the ground, putting in fire guards to, again, try to slow the spread of that fire should it try to make a push towards Fort Nelson. So everything is focused on the protection of the community of Fort Nelson and Fort Nelson First Nation. That is where all of our resources are assigned, and the operations they are undertaking is all in the interest of structure protection and structure defense.
That's Cliff Chapman with the BC Wildfire Service. As for evacuation centers, again, they are at Fort St. John, Dawson Creek, Chetwynd, or Prince George, and a new one now with 200 rooms at Sunset Prairie. We're asking you this half hour on the program, how is this wildfire affecting you? And if you've been through a wildfire evacuation, what's your advice? What's your message? You can call us 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. You can hit pound 690 on your cell phone. I'm going to go to Wade in Vernon before I go to Dan Davies. Hi there, Wade.
Hi there. How are you today?
I am fine, thank you. And it sounds like you have a lot to share.
Well, I'll try and keep it as minimal as possible. My uncle currently lives in Fort Nelson, so he's been evacuated to Taylor. And my family has gone through 3 evacuations. We're on the north shore of Okanagan Lake, the very northern tip, on the west side. We've been evacuated once for fire and twice for flooding. And, I can't praise the firefighters and the emergency personnel themselves enough. You just can't. They're putting their lives on the line every day. I was a firefighter when I was young. And it's incredible what fire can do. It can destroy homes. It can destroy everything. And the best thing you can hope for is you're waking up the next day on the right side of the dirt. Things can be replaced. But my biggest advice is listen to the emergency personnel and get out when they ask you to. Take the most necessary things you need. Your papers, all that stuff that you can't go without.
Wade,
because so many things can't be replaced.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's about your own personal safety too. And Wade, you mentioned listen to emergency officials, leave when you're being asked to. We're hearing from the mayor at Fort Nelson of the district municipality that there are about 100 people or so who have decided to remain. They say they're there to protect their homes. What would you say to them?
Just when it comes time, you're gonna know it's time to go. Things are things. You can replace things. You can't replace people. My dad and I, when the fires were burning on West Side, and Falkland, that whole area, we made the point of putting a set of sprinklers up on top of our house, and just ran them. And you just do the best you can at the time. But again, is your home worth as much as your life? Is your belongings? Like, people can't be replaced, and I can't stress that enough.
Your uncle is in Taylor, which
Yes.
is just north of it's between Fort St. John and Dawson Creek. How is he doing? Have you been in contact with him?
Yeah, I have. Of course, he's stressed. And he's looking for all aspects of help that he can get and that are made available to him. I'm assuming the Red Cross is available up there, that they've established something. It sounds like the accommodations are coming, with different organizations, and thank you to them. Again, it's not affecting me personally, this one, but at the same token, I'm still grateful for those services that are available.
What supports do you think are needed? You've been through this yourself for wildfire and for flooding, and you have an uncle now. What supports would you call for?
Again, Red Cross, any volunteer services that can help, especially with the firefighters. I hope that there's somebody up there supplying food, water, supporting them, and the people that are evacuated from their homes. It's great when you get the people that, hey, we'll take in your animals, we'll take in your livestock, we'll help you because you have animals. I'd absolutely love to see that. And even people with RVs, hey, I've got a big yard, park it here for the duration.
Wade, it's really, really, really good to hear from you. All the best to your uncle.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
Yeah, we appreciate your call. Thank you. That's Wade in Vernon. For more on this now, we have reached Dan Davies, who's the MLA for Peace River North, and he was at the Evacuation Center in Fort St. John. He's right now, I believe, at YVR in Vancouver and has just landed. I really appreciate your taking our call. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Can you tell us what the situation was like when you were in Fort St. John and at the Evacuation Center?
Yeah, well, I was certainly, I can say nothing more than honored to be able to volunteer my time, and thanks to all the volunteers and staff. I've volunteered and helped at a few different evacuation events over the last number of years, and I've never seen anything quite like this. Obviously, we're looking at 3,000 people that have just suddenly shown up, confused, upset, scared, unsure, the whole wave of emotions. But the community, the communities, as you previous caller mentioned and you're talking about earlier, they've really pulled together, supported. We've had campgrounds open up earlier than normal to let people stay there. So people are grateful. And I do apologize. Sometimes it seems like it's a long wait to get registered and all that stuff, but it was just, such an overwhelming task when you've got, 3,000 people showing up over a weekend that need the support and services. But, the communities, everyone has pulled together and it's been an amazing northern effort to help our neighbors.
Is it that sheer number that you say, you just have not seen before, even though you volunteered previously?
Yeah, for sure. And over the years, we've seen Hudson's Hope do an evacuation. A few years back before that, it was Tumbler Ridge, but nothing to the scale of Fort Nelson and Fort Nelson First Nation being evacuated. So it was a huge task. And I talked to some of the people that were working at the reception center at the North Peace Arena. They were on hour 27 with no sleep and just did not want to stop, because there was a task ahead of them. And, and there's many people that are doing the same thing. So like I say, we're here to support. So the community is there to support. People are there to support. I was, there and people were dropping off bundles of flowers to give. There was baking being dropped off, pots of soup. Again, the community has come around to support our northern neighbors up in Fort Nelson.
Can you tell us, is this center at capacity?
Well, yeah, I guess I would say it probably is. There's presently no hotel rooms available in Fort St. John. So, your previous caller, obviously they have families. So some people are staying at family members' homes. We have people that are, staying at the different RV parks. They're staying in Dawson Creek, Chetwynd, as far away as Prince George, getting the support and services that they need. But yeah, I would I would say that we were definitely at capacity over the weekend.
Yeah. What is your advice for anyone who still is leaving or traveling right now then?
Well, I would, certainly echo your previous conversations about, the fire is getting close to the community. The last thing we want our firefighters to be worrying about is people that are in the community when the task at hand is focusing on putting the fire out. So I do encourage, if people are left in the community, to make their way south to Fort St. John. Grab what you can and head south. I believe that there is still, the last I heard, there's still a bus at the Woodlands Inn to take people south. And it's just, we still need, and I'll be having a conversation with the minister either later on this afternoon or tomorrow morning at the latest. We still need more resources up in the north.
Okay, and what are those resources that you need?
Firefighters. We need people on the ground, air support, the structural protection, sprinkler systems, the whole gamut. And, and I'm sure you've heard, this isn't the only fire now burning. We've got one near Hudson's Hope that's burning now, and then one that sparked up last night near Doig River First Nation. So this is not a good start to our summer and our fire season. So we're going to need all the resources we can get that can be thrown out all these fires.
Okay. Dan Davies, I'll let you go. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Thank you.
Dan Davies is the BC United MLA for Peace River North. I want to tell you about some road closures as well. You can check Drive BC for this information, but Drive BC is reporting that the Alaska Highway, Highway 97, is closed between Prophet River Sub Road and Recreation Road, and this is for 170 kilometers. And Highway 77 north of Fort Nelson is closed, and this is between Fort Nelson and the Northwest Territory border. So keep that in mind. And you can again go to Drive BC for more information. And if you do need help with evacuation transport, the number the province is giving is again 250-775-0933. That's 250-775-0933. And we're asking for your calls as well, asking you, how is this wildfire impacting you? And if you have been through an evacuation yourself. We've heard from several people already saying, be prepared. Don't wait for the very last minute. Take photos of your home as you leave, and ensure that you're prepared. A lot of people calling in to say that. So let us know what advice you would give as well. 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. Now, some of the people are heading to the evacuation center at Suditon Hall in Dawson Creek. That is at Walter Wright Pioneer Village. That's at 1901 on the Alaska Highway. 1901 Alaska Highway, the Walter Wright Pioneer Village in Dawson Creek. And we've reached now the mayor of Dawson Creek, Darcy Dober. Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. How are you today?
Thank you very much for taking our call. I imagine you're extremely busy today.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely busy around. The emergency team is definitely busy. So yeah.
Okay. Do you have an idea of how many people have arrived there from the Fort Nelson area?
Yeah, the update I got this morning was about 400, so right around that number. So yeah, we've been open the last couple of days here. Kind of once I think we opened Saturday. Some of our team went up to Fort St. John and assisted there, and then. Since then, Fort St. John, like Dan Davies just said, I don't know if there's much more I could touch on than what he said, but like once they filled up, then folks started coming down to Dawson Creek, Chatwin, Prince George. So.
Right. And what is their arrival like? Can you take us through what that process is?
Well, you go to Suditon Hall in Dawson Creek, and then there's an amazing team down there that will just walk you through the how to register and get set up, and then walk you through like pretty much how it all works. So yeah, I try to take as much stress off of people as we possibly can. Right? I mean, everybody, I think that's the one amazing thing that comes out of, any crisis like this is community, right? Like you see it, like that heartwarming community that comes together just to do whatever they can to put, other people before themselves. And you just see this. We've seen it, last year we had a couple of, some of the Ridge was evacuated last year, kind of the same as Fort Nelson, just last minute, last notice. And, you just see it, right? Those families coming in and just living in that, fear of the unknown, right? So
Sure. Yeah, I can imagine what they're going through right now. What is being made available to them, when it comes to, there's accommodation, I imagine, as well as, any food or blankets? Like what, are there coupons being made available? What happens on that front?
yeah, like I don't know exactly every part of the package, but there's pretty much everything, like the necessities that you need, whether it would be like, obviously hotels, food, vouchers, but even down to like the basics, like if you got kids, like diapers and, toothpaste, toothbrushes. I know like there's whole different like packages depending on what you need, and they're kind of there to assist with all of it, really, right? So, and the city of Dawson Creek has also offered swimming that they can use, that these folks that are here can use the facilities as well. So just, kind of help them, right? And
Get those kids, get those kids swimming, keep their minds off of it.
Yeah, exactly right. Just something to do. I mean, it's, their world has changed, right? So anything we can do to help them and assist in that. And, Dan touched on that too, like the hours that these emergency teams put in, like it's really phenomenal, like to see everybody come together. And, we're all in this together, right? Like,
Can I ask you, you were talking, these emergency staff, are they people from Dawson Creek or have they come in from other parts of the province?
Mostly like right currently is the team mostly Dawson Creek. There's also been a couple of evacuees from Fort Nelson that have experience, so they've offered to help too. So there's been some volunteers from Fort Nelson that are helping out as well. But yeah, I mean, generally on these circumstances, like it's becoming more and more where these emergency teams are put together. But yeah, it kind of takes, it's basically like the city staff take the bulk of it, and then there's a lot of others that they draw in from. So,
and do you find that there's been more coordination between municipalities and the province? That was something that I heard mentioned this morning, that they seem to be, engaging more with municipal governments on this evacuation operation.
Yeah, I don't know exactly to comment on that now. I know, like, in the last month or so, just leading up to this, we knew, like, it's the driest it's ever been. Like, there's so many things, like the drought, all of it. So there's been a lot of dialogue, even with the minister's office and having Zoom calls and meetings. So I felt like there's been a lot of education up to today. I know community to community, like Fort St. John to Dawson Creek, for example, on what's going on now, they communicate all the time. So, but I can't comment on any more of that right currently. So
sure. And finally, Mayor, you've been dealing with wildfires near Dawson Creek as well. The 198 road fire and one near Farmington, listed now as under control. But I'm wondering about the thoughts and concerns of residents of Dawson Creek themselves when it comes to the threat of wildfire this season.
Well, I think, there's so much forest up here, right? You got to be concerned, and you can't reiterate enough, like, how cautious we need to be when we're doing things, right? Like, a lot of these are human started, right? So it's tough. It's as dry as they say it's been. Like, our watershed, I think, is the lowest it's been since '77. I think they said. So it's dry, right? And then you take our forest and the winds, and it doesn't take much to get a fire going, and it takes a lot to try and contain it, right? So we just got to be cautious. And yeah, I mean, we're concerned too, right? I mean, we've seen it last year, 2 years, 3 years ago, like all around us. So we are, it's at the end of the day, your thoughts are for all those that are suffering. And I mean, I haven't had to be through it, but material things can be replaced, lives cannot be, right? So we need to keep that in mind and just do what's right? Help those emergency teams on the ground and evacuate and do those things to help them, right? So
Mayor Dober, it's really good to hear from you. Thank you so much, and all the best to you as you deal with the folks that you're helping with right now. 400 people in Dawson Creek. Thank you.
You bet. Thank you very much. Have a nice day.
That's Mayor Darcy Dober of Dawson Creek. And he mentioned there, people needing to be cautious. So that Parker Lake wildfire was caused by a downed tree, according to the mayor there, and that is considered human caused. Emergency Management Minister Bowen Ma said this morning that this early in the year, the majority of wildfires are considered human caused, but she reminded British Columbians to take great care due to the very dry conditions around the province.
This time, early on in the season, most of the fires starts that we see are human caused. Later on in the summer, as the weather conditions evolve, we do end up seeing very few human caused wildfire starts, and the majority of those fires will be started through natural causes. But right now, especially as we enter into the May long weekend, we really need people to pay attention to the fire bans that are in their region, if there are any. And even if there are no fire bans in place, folks who are going out into the wilderness to go camping, we need people to pay extra care, pay extra attention and take extra care to ensure that their campfires are put out at the end as well. The conditions are quite dry across the province. It is necessary for everybody who is enjoying the May long weekend throughout the province to also be mindful about the possibility of fire starts as well.
That's Emergency Management Minister Bowen Ma speaking this morning. And a reminder for evacuees, the details that you need to know. Again, a reception center is open in Fort St. John. That's at 9805 96th Avenue. As we've heard, that is, according to Dan Davies, it looks like it's probably at capacity. So if you're able to travel further, there are more centers open in Dawson Creek, Chetwynd, and Prince George, as well as at Sunset Prairie with 200 rooms there. If you need help with evacuation transport, 250-775-0933, 250-775-0933. Mental health support's available at 310-6789. No area code needed. You can go to cbc.ca/BC or cbc.ca/light, LITE.